Do I amuse you? Oh, I feel like there's going to be so many of those tonight. You know, for as long as I can remember, I always wanted to grow up and be a teacher. Hey, Moose, how's it going? Hey, Honk. Yes, early to class today. Oh, man. How are you all? Welcome. Hey, Valkian, you talking to me? But of course, that's from Taxi Driver, and while he's sort of mafia adjacent because of all of the Robert De Niro references, that guy was mostly just messed up in the head. I don't think he was a made man. I don't think so. Just got a free impression. There might be a lot of those tonight. Oh, Valkian, it's been an interesting day. It's been an interesting couple of days. I'm back to work after the holidays, and the week before a term starts is always kind of crazy. Lots of meetings and hey, by the way, you need to do this kind of stuff. But I'm making it. How are you all? Hope you're doing well. So, tonight, yes, tonight we talk the Mafia. And the specific request put in by Fidelio was for the Italian Mafia. So we'll get some American stuff because it's impossible to talk about the Italian Mafia and not talk about the Americans a bit. But we will mostly be focusing on the Mafia over in the Italian region, especially the Sicilian Mafia. Yeah, full lockdown because of old Boris. I saw him make that announcement. Not working yet by union advice. Well, I hope things straighten out for you all. I saw a an article today that suggested that as many as 1 in 50 people in the UK right now might have COVID, which is shockingly high numbers. We will not be talking very much about the New York Police Department, Hunk. We're going to be talking about some Italian people, the Carabinieri, that are sort of like cops, but not. We're not going to spend too much time talking about the American side of stuff. Only when the Sicilian Mafia crosses paths with the American Mafia, we'll bring up the American stuff. But we have to talk about them a little bit because they're all part of the same sort of thing. But we'll explain why they showed up here and how they relate and all of that fun stuff. So, got a good show for tonight. I'm pretty excited about it. Did I watch the series Romanzo Criminale? I have not. Should I? And where would I? Would that be like a Netflix thing, or is that a find it on like Daily Motion kind of thing? Totally recommendable, based in real facts. You're speaking my language. Eventually, I'm going to remember that I need to put pins by my desk for things. Well, I have a marker. I can use that. Alrighty. You. I do have paper. It's not on Netflix. It's just 2 seasons. Romanzo Criminale. I will see if I can locate it. There's a film as well. Interessante. All right. So we can do the spiel here at the top. My name is Shane. I'm a history instructor in real life. I teach at a college here in Mississippi. The show is Adventures in History, where we try to talk about history stuff in a way that is fun and not so stuck up, and definitely not Professor Binns from Harry Potter. I've had those teachers. You've had those teachers. I'm not that guy. We're full of puns and dad jokes and horribleness and entendre and all of that stuff. We try. Well, I'm going to keep it PG rated. The chat can get a little wild every now and then, but we're all adults here, or maybe we're not adults here. But anyway, that's the spill. So we do viewer request episodes, and these are episodes that people get to vote on or people ask for specifically. This particular one was a point redemption. It is going out to Fidelia, a longtime friend and one of the first viewers here on the channel who requested this one in specific. So we are going to be talking about the Italian Mafia. As always, when you talk to me about stuff, we're not just going to start at, here's the height of the stuff. You got to start in the beginning. Hey, Grithar, and hey, Joey. And I will announce, because Joey just donated, remember, if you would like to accelerate the speed at which another adventure in history / Lord of the Rings crossover happens, you can contribute channel points at 2,000 points maximum per stream to the community goal. You do that by clicking on the channel points little adventure hat icon and then clicking on the community goal icon. We are moving right along with that one. So you can also save your channel points and use them however you so desire. There are lots of things down in the little chat thing that you can get going. Fun little stuff that we can use to interact and have a good time with. So that being said, once again, hope everybody's doing well. Feel free to ask questions, make comments, throw random stuff into the chat, make pertinent linkages, and all of that fun stuff. Yeah, let's talk about the Mafia, the mob. Where do we start? Well, we have to start over here in this long lost country of Italy. And to begin with, I have to remind everybody, and I don't know how many people I'm actually reminding and how many people know this, the modern day country of Italy is actually very young in comparison to most of the other countries in Western Europe. It was not unified until the 1800s, and in fact, the later part of the 1800s, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. Prior to that, Italy was a hodgepodge of different city-states and kingdoms and territories, areas that different countries around Italy fought over. And the island here of Sicily, which is going to be sort of the central theme of tonight's discussion, has gone through many, many different hands. It was originally a Phoenician colony way back in the Bronze Age. Then it had Greeks, then it had Carthaginians, then it had Romans, and the Romans held on to it for a really long time. And then when Rome fell apart, it was held by the Byzantines for a while, and then it was taken over almost completely by Muslim invaders, and then the Greeks took it back in the 1200s, and then you had these Norman people that showed up who are basically one generation removed from being Vikings. So by the time you get to the Crusades, Sicily is basically just overrun by Normans and leftover Greeks and still remnants of the Muslims that lived there. And then subsequent to that, you get this domination by this family called the Hohenstaufens, who are Germans. And the Germans controlled the region for a couple hundred years. And then you have French nobles that take over. Then you actually have Spanish nobles that take over. Then you have Austrian nobles that take over. The island of Sicily has been in so many different hands. And it has all of these different cultural backgrounds crammed onto it. And man, would I love to go to Sicily. It would be really great. I've been to Italy several times, but I've never actually been to Sicily itself. But we want to pick up in the early 1800s with a kingdom called the Kingdom of Two Sicilies, which comprised... Ooh, where's my mouse? Ah, there we are. The island of Sicily and the southern part of the boot here. And it was still... Me too, plead? You need my phone number. You gonna give me a call later? Oh my goodness. Shoot me a message on Discord or Whisper or something just to remind me, and I'll send it back to you. I need to have you as a contact in case you ever get on Cash Cab. I do take a 20% fee for all winnings done with my knowledge. So if you go on Millionaire, or if you get on Cash Cab or anything like that, I will be happy to be your phone-a-friend, but 20% is mine, and we have it on video as proof. That's fair. 20% of $1 million is a happy amount for me. I don't know. I'd take 20% of $100 right now. I could take $20 and go get a lot of Wendy's. Just 20% of whatever that question is worth. No. See if we're on Millionaire, and I'm the one that gets you past that spot. You would not have made it as far without me. So, hey, Afid, welcome to your stream. We can hash out the details. Anyway, but seriously, if you do need my phone number, shoot me a message and I'll be happy to get that to you. All right. So we're talking about the Kingdom of Two Sicilies. We're in the early 1800s. And this kingdom still has a lot of what we might consider non-Italian influence, especially from the French and the Austrians, who really want to control this region a lot. The nobles in this region have a lot of family ties to the big families in Europe, and they're not really a big fan of the sort of larger global game. In the early 1800s, we're having the rise of the first wave of Industrial Revolution. We're having a lot of nationalism, and the people, especially in Sicily, the island of Sicily, do not like really being combined with the larger part of southern Italy. They consider themselves of separate heritage, and they were. The island of Sicily had a much more varied history than that southern region of Italy. Yet now they're being combined. They didn't really get along very well with these nobles from Central and Western Europe. Hey, Cassidy. Welcome. I should give shout outs. I'm so bad at remembering to do all of this stuff. Go check out Cassidy, who is a painter and spent a lot of time in Italy. And also... I gotta put the @ symbol, dum-dum. Incredible Hunk, also a painter. Go check out both of them and lurk in their streams or participate in their streams or do whatever you do. But just do it over there. Not right now, clearly. And I'm not trying to kick you out, but I'm just saying, like, if you dig this, you'll probably dig that too, right? Okay, so these Sicilians don't really like this being dominated by these other Italians very much. And they're really going to cause a lot of trouble. And this trouble is mostly going to be based around land. Because another thing that's happening in the early 1800s in Italy is that people are having to come to terms with the fact that the nobles that had so much power during the previous 1,000+ years are not really able to hold on to that anymore. The Industrial Revolution is changing things a lot, and we're getting this new middle class kind of thing. And the people in Sicily, especially, are really interested in getting more control of their actual island. However, you have these nobles that are tied in with the French and tied in with the Austrians. And these nobles from outside of Sicily are telling all the Sicilians what to do with their land, and this is just not jiving very well. So what are they going to do about it? That's the question. Well, the answer is that they're going to start pushing back. And this is mostly done by purchasing land from nobility or from the church. And here's the thing we have to remember about the region right around Italy. That area had been dominated by the Roman Catholic Church for a long time. And even during this period of time, there are some regions right here in the middle part of Italy that were called the Papal States, that were literally effectively tributary lands run by the Pope. And these people, they're just having trouble. The world is shifting under them. We have all of these new ideologies that are rising up. We have nationalism. So basically Utah. Not too far from the truth, Moose. Not so far from the truth. We have all of these new ideas, though. We have nationalism. We want to rule ourselves. We want to have pride in our own individual histories. We have democracy. We want to be able to vote. We don't want these nobles telling us what to do. We want liberty. We want the ability to participate in the market. We want to be able to buy and sell stuff. So the church ends up abdicating a lot of land and sort of turning this over to the government. And, well, there are going to be some people that have money that can purchase that. Of course, the old nobility are going to try to gobble up as much of that as they can. But there are going to be a new group of people that are just on the edge of being what you might consider rich, a middle class person perhaps. And they're going to start buying up this church land. And that's an important thing to remember. So during this Kingdom of Two Sicilies phase, which is the early 1800s until about 1860 or so, you're going to have a growing amount of landholders in Sicily. So keep that tucked away in your head. Power and religion, always good friends. Pretty much the same thing depending on what period of time you're in and what area you are. Power and religion go like whoop. Nice little zipper effect there. Okay, so by the time you get to the 1850s, there are some people inside Italy that have this idea that if all of the different Italian city-states and kingdoms and territories would unify, Italians could actually be a pretty powerful force in Europe. And the people pushing this are Victor Emmanuel II, who is the king of the Two Sicilies. Go figure. And he's got some political guys, especially a guy named Camillo Cavour. And these guys are going to start unifying Italy. And one of the places that they want to add to their country is, you guessed it, Sicily. So the Sicilians are not a fan of Italian unification. Again, they don't necessarily consider themselves Italian. They consider themselves Sicilian. But unification is going to get forced on them. And the guy that gets sent to do the unifying is this handsome guy, whose name is Giuseppe Garibaldi. And Garibaldi is going to invade Sicily at the command of the new Italian government in 1860. And he is going to begin a decade-long process of just absolutely mashing Sicilians into Italy. Oh, somebody got the Easter egg right off the bat, Cassidy. No no pun left unturned. I have to give you a little bit of a golf clap. Red shirts. Yeah. There are groups of bad guys. If in the story, they're bad guys. The Italian soldiers that get sent down into Sicily wore red uniforms, and you have red shirts that are sort of the... There are levels to my punnery. I don't always tell you what they all are. It's your great Uncle Vinny. So Sicily is forced into unification. They don't like unification. They're not a fan of this. And for a decade, they fight this long guerrilla war against being unified. And unfortunately, they're not really going to be able to resist. The Italian central authority is ridiculously set on holding Sicily because of its food production capabilities. It's also got a lot of industrial capabilities with stuff like sulfur, which during the time period of the Industrial and Chemical Revolution, you need a lot of that stuff because it's good to make a lot of stuff out of. There's also stuff like marble and other cool things that you can get out of Sicily. I mean, it's a cool place, and you definitely want to hold on to it. And you also want to hold on to it because of its strategic location in the middle of the Mediterranean. You get to patrol all of the, the waters around you, that kind of fun stuff. So you want Sicily, and you want to hold on to Sicily. So I completely went blank there for a second. Garibaldi. Okay, so Garibaldi ends up taking over. He goes back home. And then Italy's sort of left with the problem of holding on to Sicily. Because it's like, now that you've got it, how do you hold it? Right? Because taking something and keeping something are different. And the people inside of Italy are really starting to strain against this new industrialism that gets pushed down on them from the Italians. Because the Italians want to move into Sicily. They want to bring in industrialization very, very rapidly. They want to build all of these factories. And they want Sicily to start making them money. Hunk, you don't have to raise your hand, man. You can just you could just go for it, right? We're not actually in a classroom. It's my money, and I want to be it, and I want it now. Are you talking to go the 1,000 men? Are you talking about the expedition of the 1,000? I can't remember all of the Italian words. It's like something Amelie or Die. I can't remember all of the Italian. But yes, that's during this period of time. That was in 1860 to about 1861. That was Victor Emmanuel and Camillo Cavour and Garibaldi, and another guy named Mazzini, Giuseppe Mazzini, and another guy named Crispi. What was Crispi's first name? Goodness gracious. Francesco Crispi? I guess it'd be Francesco Crispi. Anyway, these are sort of like the pillars of Italian unification. I do have a marble quarry, and I need it now. Anyway, so you end up with this problem of workers. I didn't actually even see the question, man. Hunk, so if you posted a question, I didn't actually see it. And hey, Kilter Preacher, sorry, I didn't... I mean, I saw you come in, but I didn't recognize that you came in. Black shirts? Brown shirts? There are all sorts of shirts. Anyway, there are lots of protests against this new sort of forced industrialization. And by the time you get to the 1880s, between the 1880s and the 1890s, you're going to start seeing a lot of union protests in Sicily. And these are going to be not only organized actual workers' unions, but also just sort of general peasant protests. Because remember those landholders I mentioned? Well, when Italy unifies, one of the things that happens is that a lot of the old nobles sort of lose their position because they're not really in charge anymore, and they end up having to sell a lot of their land to maintain their status. So these sort of mid-range, middle landowners are going to start gobbling a lot of that up. And then you're going to end up with these new people who are sort of newer families that had a little bit of land. Now they have a lot of bit of land. And they also have these people who had for generations effectively been feudal serfs that are stuck because they don't really have access to money. And these new families are pushing them around. Ooh, pushing them around. Garibaldi? Oh, yeah. So Garibaldi is the guy that I just showed you. He's very frequently got this nice big red dashing pose, and the workers are going to cause problems. There are lots of other issues that start with this unification. Most notably, well, when you get unified and there's a new government, you got to pay taxes. And people in Sicily were broke already, and they don't like paying taxes, right? Nobody likes paying taxes. Nobody gets all worked up and excited about paying taxes. And then there's this Italian army that they want to build. And a lot of people don't want to volunteer for this army. So the government of Italy starts a draft and forces people into the military. And guess what? It's a lot of people that are poor. And guess what Sicily has a lot of? Poor people. So you have these really high taxes. You have a draft and forced conscription that nobody really likes. And you have this big problem with land on Sicily. And this is where capos and robbers, that would have been a good one too. So this is where the Mafia really starts. And it gets its first little hooks in right around the 1900s, because you have these families that had previously not been noble that work their way into a position of power, because this land redistribution that starts going around effectively gets put in, or eventually gets put into law. And the central government of Italy starts forcing the church and the nobility to give up land, which even further floods the market. And all of this stuff gets gobbled up by the mafia leaders. Now, they're not necessarily the mafia yet. You start seeing references to mafioso people in around the 1860s or 70s, but they're not really what we would call the mafia yet. But here's what happens. There are ripple effects that go out from this in all different areas. First and biggest, these families are going to be capable of committing large amounts of violence. And there's a reason for this violence. When Italy unified and these nobles effectively have to give up their territory, this also means that they give up their armies. And this central Italian army is not going to be used to patrol the woods anymore. It's going to be used to project the power of Italy as a sort of regional powerhouse. So who's going to keep crime from happening? And the answer is nobody. Now, Sicily had police, but there were maybe like 30 or 40 of them for the entire island. And they weren't really like constant police. They were sort of like circuit cops. And they would move from city to city they'd go to this city, like, we're going to go to Palermo, and they go to Palermo and they stay for a little while and they knock some heads and beat some people up. Now we're going to go to Syracuse, and they go over there and beat some people up and knock their heads around. But they're not really solving crime. They're just showing up, making a lot of trouble, beating people up, threatening people. So who are you going to turn to for protection? And it just so happens there are people that would be willing to keep you safe. And guess what? This is where we start seeing the hooks really take on. Because if the government isn't going to be the people that take care of you, somebody's going to have to take care of you. And that is the Mafia. And who you're going to call? The Mafia. And this is going to cause a lot of... Don Corleone. We're not quite there yet. We'll talk about the Corleones quite a bit later on. But by the time you see these new families start rising, they're going to really start cracking down on a lot of what we might call the freedoms that had worked their way into Sicily, like these union protests. These mafia families are really big anti-union. They don't want unions involved. If you need somebody to stand up for you, you come talk to one of the heads of these families. And what they were effectively restoring was an old Roman concept of patron and client, where if you needed a favor, you went and saw your patron. And if your patron needed you to do something, you showed up. And these sort of bigger families in Sicily start recognizing that in order to keep rough housing and criminal people out of being rough housing and criminal people, you can just hire them, right? If you want to reduce crime in your area, you hire the criminals and then you direct where they do crime. There you go. And you start initiating these people into your secret groups. And you start bringing them into the fold and out of the sort of darker areas. And you give them cover and you give them jobs. And before you know it, by the time you're into the 1890s, you have a situation inside Sicily where this now actually forming and real mafia runs the island. And they're going to be all over the place. And by the time you get to the 1890s or so, the government of Italy is going to recognize that they really don't have control of Sicily, right? They recognize Sicily as part of Italy, but when it comes to getting stuff done down there, they don't really have a lot of power because they can't really get a toehold. The political parties inside of Italy don't get their people elected from Sicily. They'll run people that are candidates that, seem like they would be decent candidates, but if the mafia doesn't like you, you don't get elected. Because guess what? The mafia tells everybody who to vote for. So basically Florida. The average age in Sicily was significantly lower than the average age of Florida now. But there is a similar amount of crazy lawlessness that goes on. I don't think the equivalent of Florida man is Sicily man in Italy, but there is a fairly healthy overlap in that Venn diagram. I don't actually know what would be the equivalent of Florida to Italy. I don't know. It might be Sicily. Cassidy might have a better take on that. Cassidy, what's the Florida of Sicily? Is it Calabria? I don't know. Florida man does whatever a crackhead can. Rimini. Okay, there we go. Yeah, okay. That actually makes a lot of sense. Hey, boss, how's it going? Welcome. I've seen a lot of your art around the Discord lately. looks good, man. Or lady, or whomever. Looks good, you. Tiger stuff was legit. I really like the fur there. Anyway, so by the 1890s, the government has a problem. Has a big problem. What are we going to do about the mafia? And the answer is we're going to go down there and we're going to take them over. We're going to arrest a whole bunch of them and we're going to put them into jail. We're going to put them on trial. We're going to do da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Let me show you something, though. When they decide to take over Sicily and take it back from the mafia, they produce a map like this. This is a map of the island of Sicily, and it represents the density of the mafia. All right, so let me zoom in a little bit here. If you look at these cities, all of the little dots that are red are cities that are controlled by the mafia. So you've got a little bit up here in the northeastern corner around Messina, and you've got a little bit down here in the southeast corner by Syracuse, but look how much of the island the mafia controls. Lots. So as you might expect, it's not just let's go down and take over Sicily from the mafia. It's a bit harder than that. Yeah, that's a lot of mafia. And it's going to be tough. Love mafia history and documentaries? Well, you have come to the right place, my friend. It is Mafia Night. So here's what happens. They go down, and the Italian government brings in these guys that are sort of like paramilitary police officers, and they arrest all of these people, and they have these giant trials that start in about 1901. That's a lot of mafia. So they arrest all of these people, and here's what the mafia decides to do. They can take their giant wads of money and they can hire the best lawyers in Italy. And they do. And of these hundreds and hundreds of arrests, most of the mafia members get off scot-free. Some of them end up getting convicted and getting found guilty. But of the 100 or so that end up going to jail, most of them spend one day in jail before their lawyer gets them out. So this giant, we're going to clean up Sicily movement ended with a few people out of hundreds that actually spend significant jail time. And it just makes the mafia better because now they have experience. Now they know how to play the system. Now they know how to use the lawyer foo and hit them with the old Latin terminology and all this stuff. Hey, Lady Contilius, welcome. Feel free to ask questions, make bad jokes, throw puns out, do your thing. This is not what I would call a lecture. I like using the phrase guided conversation. So you are welcome to participate as much or as little as you would like. Please do feel free, though. So is that basically the mafia already had made men working high up in the justice system, or the lawyers found loopholes? At this point, mostly the loopholes. But they really quickly realized that they could start putting people into these sort of higher systems of the government to make them work. Now, they had a little bit of people in the government because they would elect made men from Sicily. Their representatives to the Italian parliament would be people that were on their side. But Sicily, compared to the rest of Italy, is not really going to have as many votes. So they don't have what we would consider like a big voting bloc that's going to be able to overturn stuff. You know, they have a contingency and they know what's going on inside the government because of that. But by this point, they're not like to the bribing the prime minister phase. We'll get to the bribing the prime minister phase. Nice stream you got here. It would be a real shame if something happened to that connection. I love the Mafia references. You are free to bring all of them as you wish. So, early 1900s, Sicily retains its control over itself until about the 1920s. And if you know anything about Italian history, you'll know that in the 1920s, you get the rise of this guy. So because you missed the first part, what is it that they have their hands in making money right now? Drugs, extortion? Neither. Mostly it's exporting the natural resources of Sicily. Food, sulfur, mineral resources. They had started in on stuff like prostitution and vote rigging and protection. They're not really to drugs yet. Sure would be a much cleaner shelf if all those Gundams lost the kneecaps. Hey, Bankenheim, how's it going, my friend? Dun dun dun! This, by the way, is Benito Mussolini. Oh, I gotta do an impression. Trump is a made man. Oh, this is just too easy. I don't know what to say, though. Because you know it's a thing, and there's giants, and there's just big people, and you talk to the head of the guys, and the guys at the head are the Dons, and I'm the Don. I'm the best Don that there's ever been. My name's actually Don. I don't know if you know that or not, but since I was a kid, they've called me Don. So I've sort of been born into this position. I've always wanted to be a criminal. I grew up as a criminal. I embrace the fact that I'm Teflon Don. Nothing sticks to me. Seems legit. There we go. Oh, Hail Mussolini. That's a little bit off. That guy's kind of crazy and kills a lot of folks. I don't know if we want to hail him or not, but maybe so. That's your call. Welcome, you. Hello. Kofefi. Kofefi. Yeah, people know what Kofefi means. You know what it means. You know what it means. If you know what it means, you know what it means. If you don't, you're just not in on the game. You're just not there. You just don't know it. It's a joke. Okay, it's just a joke. Not actually hailing Mussolini. The guy was a bad guy. He's a jerk. He's bad. You don't want to. I don't like him as much. I like winners. I don't like people that get killed and dragged behind cars. You had me at I grew up as a criminal. I like my dictators that don't get destroyed by their own people. Anyway, that's enough of Trump. But isn't that enough of Trump? Anyway, moving along. Mussolini. Mussolini has this great concept, in his opinion, called fascism. And fascism is all about this concept that the state and the government and the nation is bigger than any individual. And this, of course, means that he, as the leader of the country, is like the guy that's going to do all of the things. And he friggin' hates the mafia. He hates them so bad because they don't listen to what he tells them to do. And they're not working for the good of Italy. And he's just gonna... So there's actually this moment. He goes down to Sicily. And the reason he's going down there is to try to, like, kind of flex. And he shows up, and one of the big bosses of the mafia comes out to meet him. And of course, Mussolini is super paranoid and has all of his goons around him. And this sort of offends the mafia guy. And the mafia guy approaches him and is like, look, man, we've got your protection covered. You are here as my guest. And you need to not worry about anything while you are in my territory, because nobody's going to do anything to you. And Mussolini's pretty much like, thanks, but you suck and I hate you, so I'm going to keep my guys around me. And this, of course, is like, now you've offended my family. That kind of stuff. I missed it. Sorry. Yep. You wake up and find yourself buried in the Naples mud. Oh, there's an Italian officer in that show that instead of going Hail Hitler to German officers did the Hail Mussolini thing. Oh. So Mussolini offends the mafia. And they don't take that kindly. And they just decide that they don't care for Mussolini. And Mussolini decides that he's going to wipe him out. And the guy that he decides to use as the guy that's going to wipe them out is this guy named Cesare Mori. And I just realized that I have this little typey thing under me that I can use to type all these people out. And I haven't really been using it the whole time because I really just like talking. That's my curse. Snow White looks like Mussolini. You kill people, I don't trust you. But isn't that what Mussolini did? You don't kill the people that I tell you to kill, and you don't listen to what I tell you when I tell you to kill people. Shocked Pikachu face. Exactly. Right? So, Cesare Mori. This is Mussolini. This is Cesare Mori. And I couldn't find very many good pictures of this guy. But this is the guy that gets hand-picked to go down to Sicily to wipe out the Mafia. So this is the hitman of the hitmen. Right? But of course, the government has to work within government means, and they have to build their cases, and they have to get witnesses and find people. And of course, if this guy screws up, exactly what Snow White lookalike just said, if this guy screws up, Mussolini can just say, it wasn't me, it was Mori, right? They were so much better dressed and looking back in the day than the Americans. Right? Back in the day. So this is in the 1920s, about 1925, 26. And so Mori gets down to Sicily. He is the Baba Yaga. No, he's not the Baba Yaga. He didn't kill 3 men with a pencil one time. So Mori is a quite brilliant individual. And when he gets to Sicily and he starts poking around, he finds out that there is sort of a glaring chink in the armor of the Mafia. And that is the poor people of Sicily. Because even though the Mafia protected them and provided most of their livelihoods, the Mafia was killing lots of people, and you had to do what they told you to do, and if you didn't, they would kill you too. And Mori starts realizing that if he can get some of these poor kind of peasant farmer people to start talking, he might have a lot of witnesses, because a lot of these people witness the dealings of the Mafia. Because let's just be honest, the Mafia really wasn't trying to hide much of this. They were sort of, keeping the front of, let's be civil and let's talk discourse and da-da-da-da-da, yada, yada, yada. But they also killed people like crazy and let everybody know that they killed that guy, right? The 3 people with a pencil comes from John Wick. When Kilter Preacher mentioned the Baba Yaga, that's a reference to John Wick and the people inside of John Wick being afraid of John Wick because he one time killed 3 men with a pencil. So if you haven't seen John Wick, great movies. And yes, they still do dress very, very properly and very dashing in Italy. Even like doing basic things like, I've got to go get on a train and go visit my so-and-so. These people are in suits and they have layers, and I've never seen a group of people that are as cold as the Italians, because they can wear a coat and an overcoat and it'd be like 75 degrees outside. And I would be sweating profusely, but gotta stay in style. Hey there, do you believe this guy? You just think that he's just the boss, and just the boss, and just yeah, forget about it. So Maury gets down there, and he starts targeting these poor people, these small farmers, and he will arrest them. He'll find some little goofy charge to arrest them on, and these people can't really apply for mafia protection because they're not really in the mafia. So the mafia is not really going to spend a lot of their money bailing out all of these poor people, and Maury holds basically endless jail time over their head until they flip on the mafia. And man, does this put a hurt on the mafia, because once the mafia finds out that these poor people are going to flip on them, then they have to start trying to bail these poor people out. But here's the thing, there are tens of thousands of these people that could be potential witnesses against the mafia. And Maury, recognizing this sort of soft underbelly, which is another kind of pun about Italy, you just end up with a money sink because the mafia can't keep up. Maury is arresting thousands and thousands of these people on what might other be called trumped up charges. But when faced with, I'm going to put you in jail for 50 years, you're not going to be able to provide for your family. Or you could say who the head of the local, ring of the mafia is and tell me anything that they've done. These people start talking. And they break the rules. They talk. They tell Maury whatever he wants to hear. And this is really going to put a hurt on a lot of the big families. You are shunned if you leave the house with damp or wet hair. I have had nuns stop me on the street and make you go back home and dry your hair. You'll get sick. At least they're not as bad as the Germans, who have issues. Is it with open windows and ceiling fans? I think they don't like the fresh moving air. That one never really made sense to me. I don't get that one. But different cultures have different things, and it's okay to be different. I'm not trying to put anybody down for being different. I'm just saying that as an individual, I'm a hot-natured kind of person, and I enjoy a breeze, and I don't want to wear 3 coats. I don't want to wear a coat. In fact, I only own a coat, and I bought it, I don't even know how long ago, 20-something years ago, and I may have worn it like 4 times. I don't get very cold. Most of my family is from northern Europe, like Scandinavia region. And my blood is apparently very, very thick, which I'm sure will kill me one day. But that's another one. So Cesare Maury, very, very effective, puts a hurt on the mafia. And this is when a lot of the big crime families are going to end up leaving Sicily. And guess where they decide to go? Well, if you guess North America, you are correct. And you have a big family called the Rizzuto family, who end up in Montreal over here in Canada. But of course, then you have the big people. This again is Maury. You have people like this guy, Carlo Gambino, perhaps head of the most recognized crime family in the United States, the Gambino crime family. But you also have guys like this guy, Giuseppe Bonanno, who is sometimes referred to as Joey Bananas, which is actually his kind of mafia nickname. Oh no, Canadians are all about the mafia during this period of time. There are 2 of the Rizzutos that end up in Montreal. I can't remember if they're brothers or cousins. But they are instrumental in a lot of the mafia activity between Canada and the United States. Because around this time, there's something going on in the United States that, well, let's actually pause for just a second and talk about how this sort of all gets together. We'll talk about the U.S. in just a second. Let's put a pin right there. So, how do the mafia rebound from this? How do they handle putting themselves back together? Your Martin Scorsese movie knowledge is coming in handy. So, how does Italy's mafia get back in power? And the answer is, ironically, America. Because, we're getting to prohibition. Oh, yes. Alcohol and cigarettes and drugs. Oh, yes. We're getting to all of that stuff. But if you remember, Mussolini only stays in power until about most of the way through World War II. And what happens to him? Well, he gets killed, and the Americans liberate Sicily. The Americans and the British come onto the island during the invasion of Italy, and they liberate the island. And they find all of these people in jail in Italy, and they find out that they're Sicilians, and these people are the mafia. And when the Americans go, "Why are you in jail?" The mafia is one step ahead of them, and they go, "We were political dissidents, and we refused to give in to fascism, and we also don't like communist unions, and they threw us in jail for political reasons." And the Americans are like, "Oh man, you guys are our friends." And the mafia are like, "Heck yeah." And guess who the Americans put back in charge of Sicily? The mafia. That's right. They go, "We need local people that have good connections with the local population in Sicily, that are trusted and well placed, that we can use to help us hold Sicily and make sure that the Italians and the Nazis don't get control of the island again." And the mafia are like, forget about it. And that's how the mafia gets back in charge. Cue the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme music. Right, exactly. So then World War II ends, and America's like, "Hey, we need to rebuild Europe, so let's dump billions of dollars of funds into rebuilding Europe." And the mafia are like, "Hey, don't forget your friends down in Sicily." And America gives them millions of dollars. And guess what they're going to do with that money? They're going to rebuild the mafia. They're going to get right back in power. They're actually going to embezzle a lot of these rebuilding funds to rebuild their black market. They're going to put themselves right back in control of the power structures inside Sicily. And by the end of World War II and by about the end of the 50s, the mafia is right back in control. So Mussolini was kind of just a blip on the radar that lasted a couple of decades, but they're going to be making money from the United States. So let's talk a little bit about the mafia in the United States, because it's actually a lot older than a lot of people might think, and it doesn't actually start in New York. It starts down here in Louisiana, in the city of New Orleans. New Orleans was one of the most busy ports in the entire Western Hemisphere. New Orleans sits right here. And there were a lot of Italian immigrants. And in the 1860s, if you wanted to find some of these big connected people that had connections back to Sicily, you would want to go to New Orleans. It was a center of trade. It was sort of a lawless area. Still kind of is. I love New Orleans, by the way. I've been there many, many times. My mom was raised in New Orleans. I have a love of spicy food that I adopted from that. So I'm not trying to put New Orleans down, but for real, they shoot at cars as they're passing on the freeway with rifles. And I'm not even joking. It's kind of a dangerous place. But this Mussolini thing is what's really going to shift back towards the East Coast, especially up here to New York City. And as we all sort of know in our head, New York City is kind of the mafia place. And when the mafia first really starts taking hold, it's not necessarily what we would call the mafia. It's mostly just Italian immigrants that know of the mafia that start acting kind of like the mafia. And you get these sort of proto-mafia groups like the 5 Points Gang in the 1860s. If you know anything about, or if you've ever seen the movie Gangs of New York, there's a lot of hatred towards Italian people. And a lot of those people had connections back to the big families in Sicily. But by the time we get to the Maury phase, where the big family members are having to run away or face crime charges in Maury's trials, these big family heads are going to show up in New York places that are big cities in the Northeast, New York, and also here, Chicago in the Midwest. And between southern Canada here and the northern coast of America and the Midwest, the Italians and the Sicilians are going to find one big thing that they can make money on because, well, the United States had banned alcohol. This is, of course, during the period of Prohibition. And, well, they can figure out how to smuggle that stuff. They had the Sicilian Mafia had a long history of smuggling things already. And when the Mafia comes into America to avoid Mussolini's crackdown, they walk right into the middle of a scenario where Americans want booze. And guess what? Italians love booze. No offense to the Italians. Americans love it. Lots of people love it. And they have connections. And they have connections outside of America. And they can bring this stuff in and move stuff around. And this sort of triangle between Canada and Chicago and New York City becomes the most profitable alcohol smuggling ring in the United States. And this is when you start seeing people that I'm sure people are going to recognize here. The history of American racing. You mean NASCAR? It is. Ricky Bobby told me to. People like this guy. The old Scarface himself, Al Capone. Al Capone is one of the bosses in Chicago that is making tons and tons of money off of bootlegging alcohol. And this guy, Lucky Luciano. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy or not, but if you haven't, let me tell you, Lucky Luciano is a pretty big deal. Because Luciano is going to get the idea that the families of Sicilians and Italians inside of the Americas don't necessarily have to act the exact same way as they would if they were in the old country. Now, the honor code, yes. The organizational structure, yes. But working at odds with each other, maybe not. And Luciano is going to be instrumental in founding something called the Commission. And the Commission is a group of the 5 biggest families of mafia members inside the United States, and they're all working together. You know what is light, fast... You know what light, fast cars built to smuggle hooch are also good at? Driving in left-hand circles for 3 hours? If you're going to say driving in left-hand circles for 3 hours, I'll agree. It could be right-hand circles. I don't actually know which direction they go. Turning left. Right. So they're going to start carving out territories. And the Commission is going to work not just to make themselves more money, but to also expand their sort of corporate interests. And they're going to eventually move away from alcohol because the government eventually recognizes that prohibition was not working, and then they legalize alcohol. So what are you going to do? Well, then you're going to switch to drugs. And the original drugs that they're working on is heroin. Crashing the anti-Zoolanders. Ridiculously good looking. Anyway, they're going to move into drugs like heroin and opium. And they're going to work into extortion. They're going to work into prostitution. And they're going to hold on to smuggling, mostly for tax evasion purposes. Because once alcohol is illegal, you don't necessarily need to smuggle alcohol. But there are things you can make cheap over in Europe and bring to America and sell for a markup. And that's good smuggling stuff. And this is going to cause a little bit of course you come in on prostitution. Hey, Cave Geek. Welcome. For those of you that do not know, if you are not already following Cave Geek Art, please go do so. Great guy, good friend, does awesome art. Go hang out in his chat. He streams apparently almost every day of the year, which is super impressive to me. Commissions and prostitution, cave specialty. Oh, wow. I said that on stream. I was just reading, by the way. I am not agreeing with that. I can neither confirm nor deny. Anyway, when the drugs start flowing, the conflict rises. Because, of course, the end of World War II marked the rebirth of the Sicilian Mafia, yet the end of Prohibition marked the beginning of the drug trade. I am Shane McInnes. I'm Spartacus. Impressive, desperate potato? Are you now just trying to get me to say random words? Hey, Millie Stark. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If I haven't said hello to you and you've been in the chat, hello. I'm trying my best to emulate another streamer and be involving everybody, not just reading your stuff, but saying hello too. So welcome, everybody. Okay, so we've got the Italians who are making money off of drugs, and we've got the Americans who are making money off of drugs. And this is going to be like a problem because both people want to make money off of drugs. But Black Dynamite, I sell drugs to the community. I don't know if you all have seen Black Dynamite. It's a sort of a blaxploitation spoof, which would that make it a blaxploitation? I don't know. Michael Jai White plays Black Dynamite. Go watch the movie. Anyway, this is going to start what's called the First Mafia War. First. And I can't... Let me type this. And this is in 1962. Blaxploitation. Right. It's just like all exploitation upon itself. So, there is a dispute because the Sicilians have also formed their own commission. This is the Sicilian Mafia Commission. This is different than the American Commission. And they have sort of their own internal structure to settle affairs. And it turns out that a shipment of heroin went bad. Not the shipment went bad, but the exchange of the shipment went bad. The Italian side did not get as much money as they were promised. People in the American side paid them a lot, but took the whole or paid them very little, but took the whole shipment. There's a lot of arguing, and it goes to the Sicilian Commission. And of course, the Sicilian Commission is going to side with the leaders of that group, which causes a lot of conflict. And in both hemispheres, the different big crime families of the mafia are going to start killing each other. And this is pretty rough stuff, too. The leadership of the Sicilian Mafia is different than the families that are in power over in America. And if you have enemies in either place and you can get rid of them, you put the hit out and they get the whack, right? And this is going to spiral pretty broad because in Sicily, the Sicilian Commission mafia members had started really kind of ratcheting up the way that they're going after people, and they started using the good old-fashioned car bomb. And it turned out that, and this is sort of speculative, because the mafia is so quiet about what's happening, we really don't know 100% of what's going on. But it seems like one mafia family planted a bomb in a car to kill another mafia family's head honcho, but the third family ratted the first family out to the cops. And when the cops went to try to sort of defuse this bomb, the bomb blows up and it causes a lot of damage, and it kills some cops and it kills some military members. Yeah. And at this point, people in Sicily are just kind of distraught, and they're beside themselves. Like, now your war has not only just, it's been killing people like crazy anyway, but you're killing people, and now you're killing cops, and you're killing people in the military, and like there's just something that, like, this is just too much, right? And there is this widespread sort of kickback against the mafia, and everybody's calling for the Italian government to really crack down on the mafia. And so they do. Once again, the central government of Italy sends down a whole lot of these police officers that are sort of purposefully anti-mafia police officers. They round up a whole bunch of people. They do thousands of arrests. Thousands of people get arrested. And they put the squeeze on everybody. And the mafia, once again, gets really pinched for money because they're having to pay all of these court fees, and they're having to pay protection money, and they're having to pay shut up money. And as a response to the first Mafia war and the killing of these innocent police officers and civilians, the Sicilian Commission disbands itself. Like, some of these big families go basically bankrupt paying to keep everybody shut up so that they don't all end up in jail. And this is going to be a moment for the American side to kind of push back up. Because guess what? Now that the Sicilians are out of the way, the Americans can go crazy selling that good old-fashioned black tar heroin. And during the late 60s and early 70s, the American Commission of Mafia becomes the single largest heroin distributor in the entire eastern half of the United States. They are making millions and millions of dollars off of this stuff, ultimately unchecked. They are expanding. The American government can't really do anything about it because of the same sort of structure that's set up. There's this, I need to mention this, I guess. There's this concept within the mafia called omerta. And effectively, it's a code of silence where you do not talk to the police. If you get pinched or arrested, you shut your mouth and you don't say a word. And you know that if you are in the ring, if you're a soldier, if you're a made man, that the family's going to take care of you. If you go to jail for keeping your mouth shut, the family's going to take care of your wife and your kids. If you go to jail and do your time and get out and you don't say a word, this is a big badge of honor on you. So who's going to talk? Hello, puppy. We're visited by the puppy. Hello. Do you want to come on stream? You want to come and see me? Oh, we're going to get puppies. Come on. Come here. Come and see me. Come on. Come on. Oh, yes, there's the puppy. Oh, my goodness. Oh, so many sugars. Hello. 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 Hey, puppy. Oh, my goodness. I don't know if you can see the tail, but it is waggling furiously. Where are you going? Where are you going? What's up? You just want me to scratch your booty? She loves getting her booty scratched. Oh my goodness. What you doing? You just want attention? I'm on stream. I'm talking to the people on the camera. Okay, you're going to go back up and see small human. All right. It is a puppy. The cone of silence was a police tool. The cone of silence from Get Smart. I like it. I like it. Oh yes, the puppy. Omerta is an RPG tabletop too. I did not know that. Mafia is more like a business, and that's why they run so well. Yeah, I mean, they have whole lots of stuff and things, and you know, they're not just a gang, they're a business with men and women with skills and trades. Right. And you don't mess with another one's wife. It's kind of sacrosanct. What do you want, puppy? I am not going to halt everything that I'm doing just to attend to your needs. You have been fed. You have a cozy bed right here. You want to lay down on your bed? Lay down on your bed. What do you want? Do you need to go outside? Well, go get Brittany to take you outside. Go on. Go see Brittany. The puppy apparently needs to go outside and wants me to take her outside. What? What? Do you want to come back up here? No? Just incomprehensible. Oh my goodness. Inconceivable. I'm getting yelled at by a puppy in growly voice. Anyway. So, Omerta, you just keep your mouth shut. You don't worry about stuff, and they take care of you. So, anyway. So, by the time we get to the mid-70s, about 74 or so, the Sicilian Mafia had slowly but surely rebuilt its monetary base. And a particular guy named Luciano Leggio. And I have this thing, I can't type and talk at the same time. Hey, Asa. Stopping by to say hi, watching Loader with the kids. Oh, you watched that Loader with those kids. Govanen mi malon. No, it's my Govanen melon. There we go. Sorry, I said it backwards. My Govanen. Well met, my friend. Hope you're having a good one, though. Everybody go check out Asa. There we go. Boom. Check it. Okay, anyway. Luciano Leggio. This guy is going to be responsible for putting the Sicilian Commission back together. Nope, that's not him. That's Lucky Luciano. That's a different one. So many Lucianos. Boom. This guy. He is going to be the prime mover in the reconstitution of the Sicilian Commission. And he is going to take over one of the biggest factions, and that is the Corleonesi. Can you all see that? I'm going to assume that you can see that. I'll shrink this down a little bit just for fun. Okay, I think you can see it. Okay, anyway, Corleonesi. Or the Corleone. There we go. So, Luciano Leggio is going to head up this faction, and this is a group of people within the Sicilian Commission, and he's a pretty brutal guy. Hey, Life of Mamba, welcome, my friend. He's a pretty brutal dude, as you could tell by the large cigar. And, yeah, I'm just joking. I don't know if the cigar told you anything or not. But the Corleonesi faction is going to decide that they should be the complete sort of end-all and be-all of the Sicilian Mafia Commission. He wants to be the capo dei capi, which is what I am, which means boss of bosses. He wants to be the head of the heads. He wants to be the guy that's at the driver's seat for everything. And he starts using violence to get it. Puts pasta, pepper on pizza. Yeah, exactly. So, Lecchio is... This guy's going to be pretty... I don't really know how to say this. He kills a lot of people. And he orders hits on a lot of people. And he especially likes using this particular, I guess, kind of... Well, there's a mafia term for it. the Lupara Bianca, which is Italian for white shotgun. And this is effectively, if you order someone to be hit and you order the white shotgun, what you're saying is, I want you to kill this person in such a way that their body is destroyed to the point that it can't be recovered. Right? So like, I want you to blow them up. Like, so that there are not, that you can't find them. Or I want you to dispose of them so totally that there's no trace of them that's ever going to pop back up. Right? Hey, David Peterson. Welcome. Yes, we just talked about Omerta. Now we're talking about the white shotgun, Lupara Bianca. You don't want that to happen. You don't want these people to order that against you. And you especially don't want to cross this guy. Hey, Gypsy. Welcome. Also, we need to collect their teeths. No evidence. Right. No evidence. And this guy is big on the no evidence, get them out of my way, killing kind of thing. And he gets arrested about 7 times. And he gets tried for murder about 4 times. And he gets acquitted. What a cheery subject on a PAQ night. What's a... or was that a GAQ night? Or PAQ night? I don't get the reference, David. I apologize, my friend. The Mafia. Yeah, we was talking about the Mafia. And we've made tons of fun Mafia references, and you're welcome to bring your own and make some that are already done. We can recycle jokes here. It's all good. They get just as much leg room the second time around. Anyway, so Leggio is kind of the original Teflon Don. This guy gets tried and he gets let out. He gets acquitted because there's not enough evidence. And the reason that there's not enough evidence is because none of the witnesses made it. And the body is so far gone that you just can't tell that it's this guy anymore. And he gets in and he gets out. And he gets in and he gets out. And it's not until like the 4th or 5th time that he gets arrested. Pennsylvania State Senate shenanigans. I have been out of the loop today, David. I should probably check up on that before I comment. But I'll make myself a note to do so. So eventually, Leggio does go away, and he goes to jail, and he has to sort of run the Mafia from jail. And they try this thing where they limit the amount of contact he can have with the outside, and they're trying to make sure that he's not passing messages back and forth and yada, yada, yada. But they have so many contacts that it's just almost impossible to keep this guy completely from being able to run what he wants to do, right? So he's still running the Mafia from inside jail. And eventually, though, he's got a guy that he sort of basically lends power to that ends up kind of becoming the guy that takes over. And it's this guy. This is a very young picture of him, by the way. But this guy is Salvatore Rina. And he is going to take over as Capo di Capi. And he's going to start running the Corleonesi family, part of the commission. Master of the Sharpie mustache. So Michael Francesi is your favorite Mafia guy. He's Colombo crime family, right? And he's rather recent too, isn't he? Like still alive and still around. I don't know. I don't know so much about the American side of the Mafia probably not as much as I should. The closer it gets to modern history in America, I don't know, it's just weird. Sometimes I really get involved with stuff and I'm really interested in it, and other times I just can't find time to read as much as I want to. Anyway, so this guy, Salvatore Riina, is going to take over as Capo dei Capi, and he gets the charge from Leggio. Basically, you finish my job. You get rid of everybody that's not Corleone. You wipe out all of our bad guys, and you take care of anybody that stands in our way. And Riina is going to take that to heart. And this is what's going to start what's called the Great Mafia War. Yeah, he was, and he's still alive, and not a made man anymore. He retired, but made millions through oil and gas scandals. Oh yeah, lots of the weird, shady trading stuff. That happens a lot, especially in the 90s. That's pretty much the way that the Mafia made a lot of money in the 90s, is playing the stocks. So the Great Mafia War starts in 1981, and it runs until about 1986. And Riina is going to take it upon himself to wipe out every mafioso that is not in the Corleonese faction. And this gets really, really, really violent. We're talking thousands and thousands of targeted killings. Mafia hits on basically anybody that is even tangentially related. And he starts even towing some of the lines about who you can target, because if you blow up a car and it's got the mafiosi you're trying to kill, but it's also got his wife and kids in it, that's really, you're not supposed to mess with the wives. You're not really supposed to do that. So Riina gets even a little bit uncomfortable for even the gangsters. But what really starts kind of tipping the scales against his favor is that Riina realizes the power of getting the mafia into politics. And he starts targeting anybody that stands in the way of his people, and anybody that starts talking about limiting mafia control. So if you are a police officer, let's say you are talking in public about how you want to crack down on the mafia, you're dead. Politicians running on anti-mafia platforms, they're dead. Judges who pass sentences against mafia members, they're dead. Military officers who say that they need to use the military to put down the mafia, they're dead. This guy kills anybody. And it gets pretty big and pretty out there. And the government response is going to be the same kind of thing, where if you want to get rid of them, you got to find people that are going to talk, because you have to get them to break this omerta. If you can't do that, you're never going to get these people in jail. And the person that, well, there's actually a few lawyers that the government puts in charge, but the person that sort of leads the charge is this gentleman here, and his name is Giovanni Falcone. He's got two N's. And Falcone is going to make it his life's goal to take down the mafia. And he works tirelessly for years. And he is going to follow the same sort of pathway that Cesare Mori did back in the 20s, and that the Italian government did in the 60s at the end of the first Mafia War. But he's actually going to have a little bit of an easier time, because it turns out that there are some mafiosi that are non-Corleonese faction that were interested in talking to the government as long as the government would swear to protect them. Effectively, they were so afraid of Salvatore Riina that they were willing to break omerta and talk to the government as long as the government could protect them from Riina, because this dude was killing everybody. Hide your kids, hide your wife. They're killing everybody out here, right? And Falcone is going to get some sort of upper echelon, non-Corleonese faction mafiosa members to start talking. And when this start talking, Falcone, yep. And when this happens, this is going to really cause some trouble for the Mafia. Oh, not that Falcone. And this is what's going to lead to something that's called the Maxi trial. And this is in the 90s. Well, no, it starts in 86 and it runs through the 90s. Because this is basically one long legal proceeding where 475 high level, like leadership level. That's no, not the one from Star Fox. Dual barrel roll. No, not that guy. Anyway, so they're going to target 475 high-level Mafia members. These are not just your everyday podunk soldiers on the street level. These are people that are including heads of families. And to conduct these trials, Falcone has the government build a special set of courtrooms and holding cells that are underground in cement bunkers, because he doesn't want the Mafia to have an easy shot at disrupting these. He doesn't want people blown up. He doesn't want machine gun attacks. He's doing this stuff at such a, you can't really call it paranoid if the people are actually after them, such a careful way that because of his work, of the 475 high-level people that get charged, 378 of them get convicted. And this is huge because, again, these aren't like everyday do kind of guys in the Mafia. These are the big swinging like guys that are calling the shots and making the hits. And a lot of these people appeal, of course. A lot of these cases go all the way up to the Italian Supreme Court, of course. But they stick because Falcone had done such a good job of documenting his stuff, getting his people on record, getting his witnesses into the courtroom, protecting their safety, protecting their families. This is a humongous blow. And in 1992, Giovanni Falcone and his family are blown up by the Mafia. And that's something he sort of understood. Like you can go back and read interviews and watch some interviews that he actually conducted. And you can tell that this guy knew that his life was in danger. Like he knew that what he was doing was making him a gigantic target. And he did it anyway, because he thought that the Mafia needed to go down. But this is going to shift the balance of power inside of Italy. And by the time you get to the early 90s, there are going to be a lot of targets where the Mafia really lets everybody know that they're pissed. And they start targeting things that are sort of central to the heart of Italy. And Cassidy Austin mentioned this earlier. There is a big natural history, not natural history museum, a big Italian art museum in Florence called the Uffizi. And it has, it's absolutely stunning. It's one of the best museums I've ever been in my life. So much history, so many great paintings, people from the classics. You've got Leonardo and Raphael, and you've got ancient statues that are thousands and thousands of years old. The birth of Venus is there, and the Mafia are so hacked off that Italy did this to them that they try to blow up the Uffizi. And this was done in 1993. And they did this with, and this is sort of an across the board thing because Riina doesn't get put away. Riina is not one of the ones that gets put on trial. He's so insulated that they can't get him, but he is sending people out like crazy. There are tons of terrorist attacks. And these really are, honestly, what I'm trying to say here, these are legitimate terrorist attacks. These are attacks that were designed to strike terror in the hearts of the everyday Italian person as vengeance for these big trials where people like Falcone put so many of the mafiosa away. You were fortunate enough to see some of the paintings that were blown up in the Mafia bombing. You had to study the bombing extensively. Yeah, some of that stuff is gone forever. But I mean, there's some art from like the 1600s that is super, super famous if you are any sort of big art fan. Honthorst's Adoration of the Shepherds is probably the most famous one. I don't know how many people know what that is. You might recognize it if you saw the picture of it. But it's... And this killed a lot of people too. It kills people. It injures a whole bunch of people. The building itself gets wrecked. This sort of targets one of the outside walls of the Uffizi. But again, this is just one of an entire string of terrorist attacks that are sent out against the Italian people. Eventually, the government is going to recognize that Riina is got to go. And they catch him and put him on trial for a lot of different crimes in 1993. And there are going to be a lot of repercussions from the government. Like they caught the guy that actually did the bombing, and he's in jail for the rest of his life. There are a lot of people that are pinned with a whole bunch of different crimes for this stuff. And it's a mess. And Italy was shaken pretty hard. You went to Italy on your senior trip shortly after the bombing. There was a huge police presence. Yeah, because that's really all that they could do, right? They could try to respond and they could try to catch this stuff before it happened. But when they caught Riina and they put him away, that was a pretty big blow because they had figured out that when you put these people in jail, you can't just put them in jail. You have to put them in jail. He had already been tried in the Maxi trial in absentia, right? So during the big Maxi trial proceeding in 1986, they had brought a lot of charges against Riina and convicted him of some of them, but they couldn't catch the guy. It wasn't until 93 and this big bomb and this terrorist string of attacks that they really decided we've got to go get him. And they're targeting churches, they're targeting people. I mean, it's just super violent and it's crazy. Riina actually died not too many years ago, and the whole time that he was in jail was just yeah, okay, that's what I did. Yeah, no big deal. They have a memorial there now. For those interested, the bomb was in a car and supposed to be much worse. They were planning on parking it under the Uffizi in the center of the structure to get the most damage. But the driver arrived late, and the loggia was full of cars already, so he parked on the backside of the Uffizi. That saved countless people in classical arts. Yeah. So even as bad as it was, it could have been way worse. Thank you, Cassidy, for giving that. If you have any more information, you are absolutely welcome to share. So what happens when Riina goes down? Well, the Mafia actually is going to have to give up a lot of its control from Sicily to some of the larger crime families over in this region of Italy, which is called Calabria. And this region is not necessarily what we would call mafia, but it's definitely highly organized crime. And the Mafia is going to have to start shifting into stuff that is what we might call more legit. They start doing insider trading stuff. They start trying to do these buying and selling of property. They will blackmail people into selling property for very, very cheap, and then put it right back on the market and flip it with, like, I buy this house from you for $5,000 and then I sell it to you, the next guy, for $3 million. Estancias 28 is raiding with a party of 2, and my raid alert once again did not go off. And that irks me. I'm really getting about done with Streamlabs. Come on, Streamlabs, you're killing me. If I could live without you, I would. But, I mean, what you gonna do? You gotta have alerts. But welcome, Raiders. Hello, my name is Shane McInnes. I'm a history instructor, and we're here talking about the Mafia. This is a viewer request stream, and we're getting pretty close to wrapping up here. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Estancias, how was your stream? What were you working on? What you got going on? Do you care to share anything? If you were doing art stuff, do you have art stuff to share? If you were doing stuff, just let us know. We're pretty free, pretty laid back, easy to talk to people here. Hope you're having a great one. And I was thinking about, I was going to actually go make the alert box thing happen, because I can make it work manually. Twitch raid. So this is what you would have seen had my Twitch raid gone off the right way. So this one is for you, Estancias. Balkian, have a great night. Thank you so much for popping in for as long as you could. Sweet dreams. I hope that the lockdown is over super quick and that the vaccination stuff is moving around at a faster rate than it is over here. And I hope that the stuff with work works out as well. Have a great night, my friend. Thanks for coming by. Okie dokie. So what are we going to do? Well, you got to get into the government. And we know for certain that through a large part of the 90s and into the thousands, early 2000s, especially during the sort of tenure of the Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi, the Mafia has switched over to sort of political bribing. And the violence is still a thing, but they've realized that the sort of reign of terror that people like Salvatore Riina were running is not going to last. They need to be, that they have taken a stance of being more quiet, doing things that are semi-legit, moving stuff through shell companies to launder their money a lot. So the Mafia is still there, and especially in cities like Palermo and Sicily, they still very much run a lot of the local movings in the island. But they do not have the same amount of power today that they had back during the 80s and 90s. So, not to change the subject, but have you ever done the history of the Huns? We have. I'd love to hear your take on Attila's triumphs and wars. So we haven't done like a focused stream on the Huns. We've mentioned them a couple of times. We're not quite to the point in history where they would have sort of a topic of themselves, because Thursday nights are when we run through history in chronological order. And at the moment, we are in a block of time from about 200 BC to about 1 BC. So we're still a few blocks away from the Huns when they really get going. Attila was an interesting fellow, but he was actually one of the least successful of the Huns. in long-term scale of things. When he was alive, it was great, but when he died, his entire world sort of fell apart. There were a lot more successful Huns actually over in Central Asia, like the Hephthalites or the White Huns that beat the mess out of Persia for hundreds of years. But that's another topic. All right, so that's the Mafia. Fid, if you're still with us, I hope that was everything that you could have dreamt of as a stream about the Mafia. I had a great time. This was fun stuff. Thank you all so much for participating. But before you go, let's do the fun part. And I know everybody's waiting on the fun part. The fun part is we now get to pick the next topic. And we get to decide what we're going to talk about next. So, what I need from you all are the first 4 honest suggestions as to what we should cover in the next viewer request episode. And I'll take the first 4 honest ones that come out and we'll put them in here and then we'll actually vote on them. So what do we have to pick from? Whatever you're interested in. You can say whatever you want to as long as it's an honest one. Don't do something like the history of toenails or anything like that. The history of video games. Okay. Like Blas, if you would like to say, do the history of the Huns. Bankenheim, we have done Metallurgy already. If you go back in the VODs, you can watch an entire viewer request episode on Metallurgy. Miryu, give me a region. We have done some mythology already. We've done Celtic mythology and we've done Slavic mythology. So if you give me a specific mythology, we'll include that one. Japanese art. I could do that one. History of booze. History of pre-Tolkien fantasy. The fantasy genre? We can do that. Your father's birth town is east of Trento, and there is history to that region that was not Italy. Yes, it was Austria for quite some time. All right, we can do Native American mythology. All right, so that's actually 5, but that's okay. So here's what's going to happen. When I click the button here, if you look above you in the chat, there's going to be a poll pop up. And you just click the little down arrow and you get to vote on whatever of these you like. So go for it. What do we talk about next? We've done the history of Vlad the Impaler as well. It was one of the first viewer request episodes. So if you go... oh, no, you don't get to list all 4 of them. It's just the first 4 that show up. So if you look above you, you get to pick whatever you want. Da-dum-da-dum-dum-dum. All right. We're coming around. We're coming around the bend. It would take a while to go from... Snow White Lookalike, we are on every Thursday and usually every other Tuesday. Sometimes I get itchy and we do multiple Tuesdays in a row. But every Thursday, you can come check out Adventures in History. We'll do history in chronological order. This coming Thursday, we are talking about the Western Han Dynasty from about 200 BC until about 9 AD. And we're going to cheat a little bit and skip over into the AD period for China because there's a nice stopping point there. But these viewer requests are usually every other week. We're closing down, so if you have not voted yet, make sure you go vote. All right. And our winner, Native American mythology. Cool beans. So, what I will probably do for Native American mythology is talk about big themes. Because Native American mythology is actually quite disparate depending on where you are on the continent. The stuff down in Central and Mesoamerica is different than the stuff up in the northeastern woodlands region, and the far western region, the southwestern region has its own version. Stuff up in northern Canada and Alaska, the Inuit people have their own mythology. So I will probably cover this in a regional sort of hodgepodge approach. But that will be not next Tuesday, but the next. So that's going to be the 19th. January 19th. We'll talk about that. Thanks for the fun and informative stream. Well, thank you for hanging out. Oh, yeah, there are a lot of people into myths. Myths are a big thing around here. People really like the mythology. Oh, Bloss, thank you for showing up. And I hope you had a good time. So, the knowledge. Yeah, I've got it. I figure I would share it. Why not? It makes the world better, right? It makes the world better. Okay, cool. So we're going to go do a raid, if you'll hang around with me. I see who we shall raid. I have not raided this particular individual in quite some time. Friend of the channel, person who has helped me a lot actually building up the channel itself, has given me a lot of guidance and some tips and help stuff. My friend Crush Builds, we're going to go give him a raid. Hey, Kelly, and welcome. So we're going to give Crush a raid. Our raid charge is adventure, so we're going to yell adventure. And then if you have them, we're going to throw all of the adventure hat emotes in there that you can spam. We're going to go raid Crush. He's a cool guy. He's doing some art right now. And we'll have a good one. I will see you all this coming Thursday, 1900 Central Standard Time. Hope you all have a good one. I'm going to hit the raid button if I can hit the raid button. So now I'm going to hit this button, and now I'm going to have like 20 more seconds that I can use to blabber at you about. If you like what I do and you like to just talk and hang out, you're welcome to show up. I also build Gundam models sometimes on stream. Oh, yeah. So if I pop up on a Gundam stream, it's kind of a free-for-all, and you can ask me whatever you want to, and we'll talk about whatever. We end up all over the world. We talked about the history of Gundam. Oh, that would be great. In 1979, the Japanese people did this. All right, so we're going to go raid Crush. Thank you all so very, very much for hanging out. I hope you have a great one, and I will see you all next time.